My name is Jerome Ferry. My cameraman is Alan Eggers. We're doing a video interview with Bud Curran, a lifelong Cedar Rapidian, a retired Rock Island Railroad employee, and a longtime caretaker of the Veterans Memorial Baseball Stadium. Bud, tell us what year you were born in and where?
I was born in May 25th, 1919.
What was here in Cedar Rapids?
In Cedar Rapids, Mercy Hospital.
Yeah. What was your folks' name?
Well, my dad's name was Guy. My mother's name was Edna.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had a brother, Kenneth, and a sister, Helen.
Mm-hmm. What did your dad do?
My dad was so I switched him for the Rock Island Railroad.
Mm-hmm. When you were growing up in Cedar Rapids, did you live anywhere near a baseball park? I know you had a...
Well, in 1925, we moved on B Avenue across from Roosevelt School, which was, in the ballpark was north of Roosevelt School. Well, I was 5 years old. We moved up there with a horse and a wagon. I remember that because they let me ride with the driver up there in like a big chariot, you know.
When you were young, Bud, was it still horse and buggies in Cedar Rapids?
Well, in fact, the B Avenue was streetcar tracks, and there was curb and gutter in there, but the street was all cinders. That was in 1925. So, in fact, they concreted that later. Then when the baseball game let out, the streetcars were there, about three of them, to take the people from the ball game home, or it's like that. So,
do you remember what your dad's first automobile was?
I had a Hupmobile. Bought that. I was 19 years old. I didn't learn to drive until I was 19 years old. So these children nowadays, they're lucky.
You had mentioned in our pre-interview about a red ball road.
Well, the red ball road was E Avenue, and that's where I learned to drive the car out there on the old red ball road. It was all gravel at that time.
Where did it go to? Any town?
Well, the red ball, if I recall right, they used to go out west to Marshalltown. If that's what they told me it was, anyhow.
Would that have been old Highway 30 or?
No, Highway 30 used to go by B Avenue. That used to be Highway 30.
Did your dad ever take you down to the Union Station when you were young?
Oh, yeah, I was down there. I was out there a lot of times, Union Station. Too bad they had to demolish that.
Yes, it is. When you were growing up, did you ever get to go any circuses in town?
Any what?
Any circuses?
Oh, yeah, we had the Clyde Betty Circus used to show at the 18th Street and B Avenue. That was all a big field there then. When I was a kid, I know they unloaded down on the Northwestern tracks right there on, well, that'd be, 7th, 8th, that'd be 8th Avenue. They unloaded there and run the wagons until right up B Avenue.
Paraded them
right at B Avenue, right.
Yeah. Was you ever old enough that they would hire you to help?
Well, in fact, we went up we worked our way into the circus. That's all we ever got into.
Winter activities. What did you do in the wintertime as a young kid? But was there ice skating or skiing?
Well, we used to go to Roosevelt Hill over there and slide down, but either side towards B Avenue, or so you could slide down towards the old ballpark, which a lot of kids would tear off a piece of steel or an old tin off of the fence, and they make toboggans out of it.
When you were a kid, did you ever recall, this was back in the Depression years especially, where people would walk along the tracks and pick up coal so they would have something to burn in the stove? Or?
Well, I do remember that Highway 30 went by B Avenue. We lived on B Avenue. And my dad told my mother, a lot of people were hitchhiking. A lot of people didn't have money then. Mm-hmm. And they said, you feed them, but don't invite them in the house. This was in the summertime, of course. So you feed them out there on the swing, but don't ever turn them away.
Do you ever recall any hobos?
Oh, on the railroad, even when I worked there, oh yes.
There were still
You know,
hobos.
say they still, yep, you'd look up in the car, they'd yell, you got a cigarette? You got a cigarette? Well, of course, at that time I smoked.
How did you feel about him? Did you kind of look the other way, or when you?
Well, it all depended. You can usually tell what type of fellow they was, you know. But you never argue with them. You let them go their way, you go your way.
You didn't know if they were down on their luck or if they were just a bum.
A lot of them was winos. I know that.
I had a notation here about a ragman.
Well, when they say you're back, they used to go up the alley with a horse and wagon. When they buy rags and old iron and old junk. See, that's what they did years ago.
When did you first get interested in baseball? What age do you suppose?
Well, I suppose, I was about 7 years old, 8. It wasn't far from the old park, and I rode my bicycle over there or walked, either one. But I know my mother and dad there. My dad said, that's all we hear for breakfast, dinner, and supper is baseball from you and your brother. And we finally got my mother interested in baseball. Dad worked nights on the railroad. She'd go to the ball game, and she'd have to go home and wake him up to go to work, but then she'd come back to the ballpark again.
Did she get to like baseball, or did she just go along just?
Oh no, she really liked baseball then, because when we moved up on B Avenue on Birch Avenue in 1940, and after my dad passed away in 1952, why mother used to have some of the ball players stay with her, and she had real good ball players. One especially was Ron Plaza stayed there. He was our manager for 2 years, and she would so the pitchers, if the pitcher shut out, she'd I'll cook you a chicken dinner. So she always did that for the pitcher if he had a home run.
When you was a kid, but what was the name of the park?
The old Hill Park.
The old Hill Park?
That's right, right, north of Roosevelt School.
Mm-hmm. Why was it called the Hill?
From Belden Hill. He was a local businessman here in Cedar Rapids. Had a cigar store down there on First Avenue, right across the Roosevelt Hotel, next to the McClellan's Dime Store.
Mm-hmm. And what was the name of the club?
Oh, they were called the Bunnies.
The Bunnies.
Bunnies at that time.
The Belden Hill Bunnies.
No, Belden Hill owned them.
Okay.
He was owner.
Mm-hmm.
But they called the Cedar Rapids Bunnies.
What was the affiliation at that time? Do you have any idea?
At that time, I don't know about when we were the Bunnies, but in 1934, we were the farm of Cleveland. See, from Cleveland on, we were the farm of them all the way through 1942, when they tore the old ballpark down after the 42 season.
Mm-hmm. Did they ever have a knothole section for the little kids?
At the old ballpark, I can't recall a knothole section.
What did it cost for a kid to get in?
Oh golly, it wasn't much for a kid. Like foul balls, they'd let to 2 in on the ball, you bring the ball back. And they was after the baseballs then. A whole lot different now.
They were expensive as far
as they was really, money was tight.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever sit outside of the stadium and try to earn some money by catching the balls?
Well, I didn't have to because I worked at the ballpark. I helped take care of the ballpark and on the ground with Maniskheim, which I learned a lot from Maniskheim over there.
Who was Maniskheim?
Maniskheim, he was groundkeeper at the ballpark. And then I'd worked with him as club boss boy. And the club boss dues was 50 cents for 2 weeks for each ball player. And then we'd also sweep the grandstand. Alec Fiddler had the concession stand over there. Of course, that's when you bagged the peanuts yourself, and they had Coca-Cola and hot dogs, and that's about what they had.
When you started first going there as a little kid, what did you do? Just hang out and...
Well, I just hang out till I got acquainted over there. I got acquainted. I kept working, and that's I just enjoyed it.
Were they able to pay you anything?
We just paid clubhouse dues, and then we got a little money for sweeping the grandstand.
You had mentioned earlier about when you was a small kid, people that used to hang around a grocery store used to pay you to swear. What was
well, when we lived on 2nd Street side, northwest down there, about where the new fire station is there was a Nissan trampoline there, and there's a grocery store on E Avenue, right where that it's a dairy there now. And they used to pay me pennies to swear, and my mother always said, "I don't know what I'm going to do with that boy. He swears all the time." I washed him out with soap, put a wash rag down it, and the lady told him just ignore him, and he'll quit it. And she did that, and I guess I wouldn't say it anymore.
What would they do? Give you a penny or something? And
they give me a penny every time I want to swear, yeah.
Okay, so you're growing up, bud, and what's your first job you ever had?
My first job was over the old ballpark over there.
After that,
after that, I went to 1940, I went to work for F.W. Woolworth in Madison, Wisconsin. And Thurmy Harris took my place over there to help manage time with the grounds. So that's why Thurmy got into baseball. That's how I knew Thurmy ever since then.
So when you went to, where'd you go to high school? Did you go to high school?
No, I went over to Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
I went all through the 7th through the 12th grade at Roosevelt.
So when you went to Madison, then you were what, 21?
Well, I worked down in the stock room, helping, taking up merchandise upstairs, and I'd ride back and forth every weekend to do student trips on the Rock Island Railroad so I could go switching.
How did you get to Wisconsin? Did you ride a train or?
No, I drove my car.
You drove a car?
I had a car, and I made $17 a week. I paid my own board and room, and I drove back and forth about every weekend to do a student trip on the railroad.
What kind of car did you have?
It was a Chevrolet.
What do you suppose the price of gasoline was back then?
Oh, golly. It was 16 cents, I think, something like that.
So you would drive back on the weekends, and you mentioned you would do student trips.
Student trips on the railroad.
For the railroad.
Because my dad said, when you go to work for the railroad, I want you to know what you're doing.
What would you do when you did these student trips on the weekends?
Well, I'd be out switching with right in the yard with the switchman.
Kind of like on-the-job training.
Right, that's what it was.
Was there any physical requirements that
At that time, you had to go to work on the railroad. You couldn't wear glasses. At that time, you had to be 21 years old. So
you had to be a certain height, or?
No, I don't know about any certain height, but you had to have a good health.
Back then, working on the railroad lines, on the tracks, and the switchmen and everything, did they have a lot of different cultures? Irishmen, Hispanics, and.
Well, you had a lot of. Excuse me. On the section, you had a lot of Mexicans, hard workers, really hard, really dedicated,
I often read about the time check area here in Cedar Rapids. Were you aware of it at that time, that that's where a lot of the railroad employees, or was this way before your time, where a lot of the railroad employees...
No, they used to have a whistle up there. When they had a wreck, they'd blow that whistle, instead of calling them on the telephone, and then those employees would go over there for the wrecker.
Mm-hmm. So when did you hire on? What year did you hire on?
December 1940.
1940. And what was your starting wage when you...
$7.06 for 8 hours work.
Was there... you were ever to call any benefits, or was it just a straight wage?
I shoveled snow in 1939 for 40 cents an hour. On a section.
For a section?
Yep.
Did you ever run into any large drifts that you wished you may have some other type of job?
Well, then, see, you had no bulldozers. You'd shovel the snow on flat cars. Then they had a switch crew would take them over and put them on a track by the river. Then you'd shovel the snow off the flat cars in the river, and then they go back and get more snow again.
Do you know of any particular places in this part of the state that had a lot of snow that you it was a large job to remove it? Was there any particular gullies or valleys around it?
Well, I know in the winter of 35 and 36, my brother-in-law and I were snowbound out by Newhall for 3 days. That's the worst winter I ever put in. We had to be right by his sister's farm, so we was on the farm out there for 3 days. Couldn't get out.
When you started working what was your title, or what was your job when you first got a job?
On the railroad?
Yeah.
A switchman.
Switchman. Uh-huh. Did you have to belong to a union?
Well, we did, yes.
You did, but
yes.
Did you have to belong to the union, or
well, everybody
was
did.
it probably frowned upon if you didn't?
Also your clothes had to be union made. You know, they were pretty strict on that.
What was the Peavine Railroad?
The Peavine was. I made my first pay trip on the Peavine on the railroad. I went to Decorah, through Toddville, and up to Center Point, and Walker, Raleigh, Independence, and West Union, Randalia, playing into Decorah.
Mm-hmm. Is that still the track that goes out through Hiawatha?
Well, that's all. This is all tore up.
It's all done.
I go up there on the interstate now. I can look over and see where the Rock Island used to be on certain spots. I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get the chance to take the Crandic down to Waterloo or Iowa City? Or?
Oh, well, you mean the WCF and the Waterloo? I took that when I worked on the switch unit at Waterloo one time. I took the WCF and up there. And also I took the Crandic from here to Iowa City when I was in the service one time.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor,
I was in the Army already.
You had...
I was drafted for 1 year, and I was at Fort Francis C. Warren in Cheyenne, Wyoming. At that time, it was a quartermaster base. Now it's an airfield here now. But I was on KP duty that day when they bombed Pearl Harbor as well. I was in for the duration, so I didn't know how long I was going to be in the Army.
What was your job in the Army?
Well, I was doing basic training in Cheyenne,
mm-hmm.
and I was there 13 weeks. And then from there, after my basic training, they sent us to Shepherd Field, Texas. And I was there for a while. Then we went to Oklahoma City. We was the first troops in that new Tinker Field down there.
And then, did you ever have to go overseas?
I was overseas 2 years and 10 months.
And what?
Over in Africa, Italy, and India.
And what were you doing? What was your group doing?
Our company was a immediate maintenance company to fix vehicles. I was first sergeant of our company, and we had 45 men and 2 officers. And we had our own garage over there. You had to get a garage wherever you could.
in any motorized vehicle that needed repair, you'd end up fixing it.
Our fellows would fix them, yes.
Did you pick up quite a bit of mechanical knowledge in doing this type of work?
Well, I was first sergeant, so I didn't get my hands dirty.
Oh, okay. And what year were you discharged in?
September 1945.
45. What rank did you?
I was staff sergeant, but acting first sergeant. That's what the RTO called for.
Would you 45? So you ended up being in there 4.5 years,
Right.
4 years. Yeah. So then, what did you decide? Did
I went right
you still
back.
have railroad
I
in
went
mind?
right back to work for the railroad. I had my seniority,
Yeah.
and I was going to take a few days vacation and go into Chicago for I forget what for now. And then they knew I was back, and they called me up and said, "Well, Bud, we need you. Come on, we need you to go to work." So I went to work.
Was good help hard to come by at that time for working on for the railroad?
Right. I know my dad complained about the help. He said, "I wish the boys would get back from the service so they go to work."
Did they ever have any women report for work for the railroad when you were?
When I was working, they had them as clerks. But that's see, I retired in 1980.
Yeah. But they never had any as engineers or switchmen?
Not when I was working, no.
Yeah. So did you come back to the same job as you when you left? When you come back from the
Well, I came back as a switchman, yes.
As a switchman,
yes.
huh? And where was your office?
Well, it'd be up the north of the Quaker Oats on the right there. I drove up there yesterday, the first time I've been up there now for, 15, 16 years. It's sure changed up there.
There isn't much left, is there?
No, not much.
What was your duties as a switchman?
Well, you've been making up trains, or you switch from different industries in town.
It was your job to decide what cars were going to go into a string of trains, or in what order they were going to go
What order you had to have in the station order.
As to what town or city you were going to arrive at first.
Right, what town is going to, right.
This was steam, still steam?
We had mostly steam at that time back in 1940. The only diesel you had was on the rockets. And then they had 2 diesel switch engines, but outside of that, most of them were steam engines.
These steam engines, Bud, what kind of horsepower are you talking about?
Golly, I can't tell you what kind of horsepower there was, but I know one thing about it. When I was switching up there, I could give a kick sign and hear the exhaust, and I could give a stop sign and know how fast it was going just by the exhaust sometimes.
How did they rate their power?
Well, the different engines was so much for power.
Tonnage?
They had a tonnage, right.
Tonnage would mean they were capable of moving so much.
So much tonnage only. Right. And sometimes when I got to be yardmaster, you'd try to lie a little bit, and they wouldn't make Putledge Hill out here. Then you'd get in trouble.
Well, what was your duties as a yardmaster?
You was in charge of the whole yard, all the employees and all that, making up trains, telling them how to make the trains up, and when to call them.
Did they have a large repair house back at the Rock Island, back at the behind Quaker Oats?
Well, they had what we called a bad order yard to fix cars up there, but it was smaller. Later on in the years, it got to be smaller.
Did they have a what did they call them? A
turntable.
A turntable.
Well, they had a turntable there, right?
Yeah.
It's all tore out now.
When you had a train made up, how many crewmen could you expect that would have to take to operate that train?
It'd be 5. You
Five.
had an engineer, the fireman, and a head brakeman, and a rear brakeman, and a conductor.
And who rode in the caboose?
We had a conductor right back there and a brakeman.
And nowadays, how many do they have?
They got two. Right on the head.
And they're
Right
both
on the engine.
They're both up in the engine.
Both in the engine.
How did you communicate between the caboose and the engine? Just by hand signals?
Hand signals. Now they got radios.
Yeah.
we had some radios, but the union would do, oh, you can't use them. You can't use them. Until like years ago when these painters, when they first got the rollers out, oh, you can't use them. You got to use a paintbrush. That's the same way there.
What did the conductor, what did he do to pass his time in the caboose? I often wondered.
Well, a lot of times, see, you had to be up in the cupola, the brakeman on one side, the conductor on the other. When you went around curves, you looked out and see you had any hot boxes. See, they had a lot of hot boxes years ago. It was all packed with packing and grease in. And now it's different. They're roller bearing and all that. So
I imagine with those hot boxes, if it was dry, like in the fall of the year, you
Oh,
probably set quite a few fires.
they had a car in the chucking when they got in the yard. You know, you had to have a hot box. You had to set the car out. You had to switch in and had to get it out of there.
If a train did set a fire along the track, what did they do? Just keep on going until they got to the next town and call somebody and say there's a fire back there?
They had no radios. They'd stop and tell them there was a fire on the right of way up there.
Did were the crewmen, were they capable of stopping the train and tapping into the telegraph line
No, they had
to communicate back to the?
mostly station to station.
You mentioned the Putlage line. Where did that go to? Down to
Well,
Ely?
Putlage was, see, that's you get where the packing house is.
Mm-hmm.
They call that Putlage Hill, there. And then your first station would be Ely, the first station. And Solon, West Branch.
I interviewed a lady. Her husband had passed away. Hank Furman. You remember Hank?
I sure
Furman?
do.
Yeah.
He was a operator and a dispatcher. Hank was.
Did you work the night shift or pretty much the day shift?
I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Oh, you did work the night
Yeah.
shift then. Yeah. Did
There
you?
was the third shift.
Yeah. Did you enjoy working the third?
I enjoyed working on the railroad.
Yeah. Did you ever have to?
Whatever I ever did, I've enjoyed.
Yeah. Did you ever get stuck with the day shift? Did it put you?
Well, I was there one time when my dad passed away, but I went back nights again. I couldn't see in daylight.
Are you serious? I mean, your eyes at that time wouldn't allow you to.
No, I'm just kidding there.
Yeah,
see.
you're just kidding. You was a night shift
Yeah.
operator. What year did you get married?
Got married January the 1947.
And who did you marry at that time?
Her name was Betty Lucas.
Was she a Cedar Rapids girl?
I met her at church, yes. I graduated with her brother, same kind of school. And I didn't know her at the time.
You had been a yard master, and what was your next promotion from a yard master?
Well, and I always told my dad I'd like to be a train master, try it out. So I applied for a train master in 1951. And they made me assistant train master at Manly, Iowa. So I was at Manly about a month, and they sent me to Jolly, Illinois.
What was the train master's or assistant train master's duty?
Well, he was the boss over to everything. And really, you had a train master's job, you had a 24-hour job. You was on duty all the time, I would say.
You could expect to get a call anytime.
Anytime, any derailment or anything.
And it was your responsibility.
Right.
And how big of an area were you responsible for?
Well, like it was on Joliet that time, this is the Joliet territory.
Did you move your family with you at that time, or did you still have them?
Betty was pregnant with my son Jim at that time, and that's one of the reasons I give it. I thought I'm going to give it up, and I'm not sorry I did.
Because you'd have been probably away from home quite a bit.
Well, I've been away from home a lot. Then I'd have to move with the wife and the kids and all that, and they move you around a lot.
Would there have been a substantial increase in pay if you would have went to a train master?
Well, at that time, he says, we'd give you a raise. You're getting $500 a month now. And that was back in 1950, or 51.
Did they have any type of medical insurance
No,
for you?
no.
How about pension?
Well, you get pension, you're right,
Yeah.
right. But see, like your medical insurance, we had some, but you had to pay the part yourself. I don't know how it is now, but
Back in the heyday of the railroad, but approximately how many trains passed through Cedar Rapids?
oh golly, years back, gee, I forget how many years back, but they used to have 2 passenger trains under Peavine, and they had a passenger train going to Columbus Junction at noon. And but way before my time, they said there was 40 or 50 trains in and out of Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
And that would include the Northwestern, the Milwaukee, the Illinois Central, and then also the Rock Island.
And these would have all passed through downtown somewhere, isn't it?
Right, the depot downtown. It's too bad they demolished that depot.
Do you remember a lot of complaining back then amongst the citizens about the streets being blocked by railroads?
Well, see, they had a crossing flag for all the crosses downtown years ago. And they always heard complaints about blocking the crosses. I think they block them now just about as bad as they did then. With only one railroad down there, really.
Do you remember a lot of, well, you'd been in the service, but troop trains going through, hauling material and vehicles?
Well, I was in the service, but I've been on 2 trains myself when I was in the service. See, I was gone all that wartime.
Do you ever recall any funeral trains going through Cedar Rapids for presidents?
No, I can't.
When you
No.
worked in Cedar Rapids?
I went down and seen Truman one time at the depot, and he was running for president, and that's the only president I've ever seen in my life is Truman.
Did you ever? I'm sure you had a railroad pass that you could ride at free of charge.
Right, I had a pass. I could ride the Rock Island Railroad.
Did you ever get a lifetime pass in your years of service?
No, I never did.
Did you ever take advantage of this pass? Did you and your wife ever travel?
Well, we went to California, then they called that a foreign pass. The foreign pass was any railroad outside of the Rock Island. But you had to apply for that. It took about 2 weeks to get it, but that was free.
They would recognize each other's lines.
Right, and they give you a pass, but they had to be typewritten up and all that, your name and who's your children on there and all that.
So what year did you retire from the railroad, Bud?
June the 1st, 1980.
How old were you at that time?
61.
61. Was there a mandatory retirement?
Well, at that time you had to have 30 years service or 61 years of age. And I was 61 on May 25th.
Did you have any idea what you was going to do if you retired?
Oh yeah, I knew I was going to be over at the ballpark.
You were going to devote more time to your first true love than the ballpark. Okay. And did they give you any gold watch or anything when you retired?
No, when I retired, the Rock Island was under. They went bankrupt. And I thank the good Lord that I was the right age where I could retire. I had to wait I went to work for 2 months for the Northwestern. And I went and switched it again for 2 months. And I showed them the old man could still do it.
What do you suppose caused the downturn in their...
Poor management. See, the Rock Island was the first railroad to go bankrupt. Some of the other railroads later on that merged or so, they got a severance pay or they got a bonus, but the Rock Island got nothing.
I've often heard it mentioned that one of the reasons that the railroads come on hard times was because all the feather bedding. Would you think that was feather bedding? I assume they meant people that didn't believe in putting in a full day's work.
Oh, you had your fellas that didn't want to do too much. You know, I mean, that's you got that in all walks of life.
Yeah, that's true.
But one thing like I said, you know, whatever I've did, I've enjoyed doing all my life. I drove a school bus for 40 years.
When did you do that?
I drove for charter coaches. I started in 1952. I drove for charter coaches 3 years, driving a school bus out by the Chain Lakes Road and all out through there. Then I drove for College Community 25 years. And then I drove for the Trinity Lutheran 12 years. Well, then I got too old, I guess, so they said I couldn't drive anymore. The kids told me I better quit.
You worked for the railroad at night and drove a school bus during the day?
I'd go out and I'd go like everything. You got to College Community School and drive it in the morning.
Were you doing this, Bud, because you're the type of person that has so much energy to burn off, or was it you were trying to make a decent
Well,
living?
I look back at it now, you know. I could lay down a couple hours, sleep 3, get up and go again. And I just wanted to do it. I enjoyed to drive the school bus.
You like to be kept busy.
Yeah.
You were fortunate you had the ballpark to fall back on when you
Well,
were retired.
me and Thurman Harris would take care of that ourselves at that time.
Okay, so Bud's retired from the railroad. Now, let's see.
What's this?
I said you're retired from the railroad. Now, what? Were you working part-time for the railroad at this time when you retired?
Oh no,
I'm sorry. Were you working part-time for the baseball?
Well, I was taking care of the ballpark too. That time.
Besides driving a school bus and working for the railroad.
Right.
You had mentioned that you had been a board member for how many years?
Oh golly, it's been 30-some years now. I've been a board member of the Cedar Rapids Baseball Club.
Did your children show the same interest in baseball and in the baseball club that you did?
Yeah. My wife worked for the concessions over there along with Thurman Harris's wife. And then my daughter Nancy, she was usherette, but she started when she was a kid, usherette over there. And so we worked on the scoreboard, and then he worked as a club boss boy. And I guess we got the whole family involved.
I think this would be a good time to show the picture of your family, Bud, if you'd like to hold it up in front of you.
This is my whole family outside of my oldest granddaughter's two children out in this picture.
Did you and your wife, was you on the payroll for the ball club at this time when you retired?
Yes, yes, right.
What was her duties at the ballpark?
The wife?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was working in the concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did she was she kind of in charge of the concession stand, or is she just one?
Well,
of the
her and Thurman Harris's wife Elma was like they were running it for the ball club. But then later on years, the ball club took it over themselves and hired someone to run it. You know.
I have a picture here. I'd like to have you hold up in front of you, Bud, of the stadium.
Picture
Straight up and down. The Veterans Memorial Stadium.
the old ballpark.
What year do you suppose this was?
What year?
Yeah, that this was probably.
This was taken before it was torn down.
before it was torn down.
Yeah.
Very nice.
What year was it that they moved into the ballpark?
1949 was the first year it was used.
Okay.
Right. I know 3 days beforehand, they laid the sod into foul territory.
49. You would have been in your Thursday in your 30s. Was there a lot of controversy amongst the citizens of Cedar Rapids when they went to build this
if I
stadium?
recall right, the Junior Chamber of Commerce got two. What do you want? You got 2 bids. I mean, the bond issues to build a ballpark.
No, what I meant was, as far as the public opinion of the people in Cedar Rapids, was there such a turmoil back then in building this stadium as there was in building the new one today? Do you recall?
Well, really, that stadium was built. The old stadium was built too cheap. I can go over the whole years I was over there. What improvements was made, either by the ball club or by the city, which. But the ball club put a lot of money back in that ballpark. I mean, stuff that wasn't done, you know. They didn't want to get too much See, at that time, they had that bond issue, and it was for 20 years. $300,000. That's peanuts today. Look at this ballpark. Now is a venture of the ball club, the state, the Memorial Commission, and I'm glad they all cooperated together, because you would never get it now. You would never get that penny sales tax either now.
Bud, you have some other old photos here. I would like to have you hold them up and explain to them as to what they were.
Well, here's a picture of Old Hill Park.
This is when the bunnies played.
The old bunnies. That's the old Hill Park. And the Roosevelt School's in the background. If you look close, you can see it.
What year do you suppose that was?
This here? Well, it had to be about, this picture was taken about probably maybe 1940 or 42 at that time. And here's a picture of the 1907 ball club. And here's a picture that I took it from top of the grandstand in the old ballpark. That's looking towards E Avenue. Now here's a picture of the old clubhouse. Any visiting team dressed at the hotels uptown. But that's, we had a stove, we had a Coke stove. We had to take care of that with kindling to heat the water for showers. Now here's a picture of Frank Goldie Howard and Bill Mazur, the outfielders for the Cedar Rapids Baseball Club.
What year do you suppose?
That was back in, had to be 38 to 40, along in there, those years.
When you were a little kid, Bud, who was some of your favorites?
Well, you had Pat Siri, the old ball by Pat Siri, and like Goldie Howard, and Bob Hershey played here. Good boy, he got killed in the war. And another fella, still alive yet today, Johnny Lyle played third base here. Well, Johnny's alive, and he has got that Nelson mobile home sales out. I call by Lidmore out there. And I went out and seen Johnny here a while back, talked to him. Now there's a fellow that he ought to get, he's at 92 or 93 years old. Takes a baseball or tennis ball, throws it in his office, back and forth.
Baseball, of course, was seasonal. During the baseball season, you and your wife worked for the city. What did you do in the off season? What did you do? Did you still work around the baseball park?
In the fall, I'd work for the city over there, sodding and getting painted and stuff to do in the fall. We'd get done about the 10th of November. Then I'd work for the city again in the spring of the year, starting about the 10th of March or 15th. Get ready for the season. When it comes baseball season to the ballpark, I work for the ball club.
Did you ever allow any activities in the ballpark besides baseball?
They had that Shrine Circus over there. They had the dog show over there. George Clifford was general manager. They had to get more money to, getting down where they didn't have the money, and that helped along a little better.
What was the dog show?
Well, they had all kinds. They had cats and dogs and everything. They had a show them on the regular dog show. They had awards,
Purebred.
The purebred dogs, right?
Pedigrees.
Yep.
Back in the early days, let's go back to when you was a kid. What was the crowds like? Were they comparable to today, or were they bigger, smaller? Or?
Well, at the old ballpark, you had what they call a Wilson night. Wilson Packing House would give away hams and stuff like that. Well, people come for that, But it wasn't. I think we draw better now than we did then. Of course, people years back, they had to come by either walk or come by streetcar. That's the only transportation you had. Nowadays, when they got a car, well, there's something wrong. See?
Approximately when do you think they got lights in the stadium? What did they have lights in the old stadium?
The old ballpark, I think it was back in 32, I think, when they got lights over there, 32 or 31. Now, they was out of baseball in 33. And then we got back baseball again in 34.
When they first got lights, do you think that helped their attendance?
Well, I think it did, because a lot of people can come to ball games at night where they couldn't come during the day. They got to work. But the old ballpark had 61 lights, and they had no cover on the lens. When it started raining, you had to shut the electricity off, or you didn't have no bulbs.
So before they had lights, and when they did play the games in the day, were they in the mornings or afternoons or
In the afternoon.
in the afternoons?
It started about 1 o'clock.
Yeah. So I could see where not many people would be able to take off work.
No, you couldn't do it.
How many affiliations can you remember that was in Cedar Rapids?
Oh, Cedar Rapids? Oh, golly. We've been to the Indians, Cubs, Astros,
Reds.
and the Reds, and the Giants, and of course the Reds also.
Dodgers.
Yep.
Cardinals.
Cardinals.
St. Louis Cardinals.
St. Louis Cardinals.
And didn't they have one from they called the Angels?
No, we're a farm with the Angels right now. Anaheim Angels.
Who were your favorites? All the years. Well, who was the favorite affiliation here that you
Oh, I think the
worked with?
the Cardinals and the Reds was my favorite. Yes.
Why?
Well, one thing about the Reds, you got Chief Bender was a farm director there, and he was a swell fella, really, really nice. And I went down in '88 and went down to Plant City, Florida, to help lay out those fields down there for them in '88 for the Reds. And I was down there about, I think, 10 to 12 weeks or something like that.
Did they ever broadcast any games? Did they ever have anybody?
Well, when with the old ballpark, they would let him in the grandstand to broadcast. So they broadcast that house across E Avenue on the roof. That's how it was years ago.
Of course, if they broadcasted it, that would hurt their attendance.
Right. That's what they figured. Years ago.
Did you ever see any people sitting on top of their houses watching ball games?
Well, there was only about 2 or 3 houses over there, but they get on Roosevelt Hill and watch the ball game. That's why they had curtains back there on the grandstand. They'd pull the curtains so they couldn't see through there.
Did you ever make any good friends with any of the ball players when you was a kid?
Oh, dude, I've had a lot of friends over the years, like Hank Sauer, was a coach with the Giants. I had Hank over here. I had the bar room downstairs, and we'd go over there and have a few drinks, and that was what they called the old days. See?
Can you recall any famous players that come out of Cedar Rapids or come out of the clubs in Cedar Rapids?
Oh yeah, you got look at Paul O'Neill, just retired from the Yankees. He played here, and you got Ted Simmons, and then that Murray, that Rich Murray played here. There's different ones that you forget over the years, you know.
Can you remember the day when there wasn't any blacks played in Cedar Rapids?
Oh, absolutely. The old ballpark, them ball players over there, they wouldn't dress with any black players. No.
If a team would come to town that had black players on it,
There'd be two color teams come to town. And I think that was wrong myself, but it shows right now it was.
Mhm.
I'm glad things are like they are now.
Do you remember Art Pennington?
I sure do. I just seen Art the other night out the Long John Silver's. Yep.
Do you suppose any of the players that played here over the years that made good at one time or another, do you suppose they may have kicked in and give a little towards the stadium here in Cedar Rapids?
They ain't the one give a dime. Only one has given any money was Cal Eldred. He's the only one.
And Cal never played here in Cedar
No,
Rapids.
but he's a citizen of Center Point, and he lives here in town now. But that's the only money they've got.
But in the stadium, if a rainstorm come up, did you have the capabilities of covering the field with a tarp? Did they have
Well,
tarps?
when the ball game was on, we'd get help from the crowd put it on. But say like it was if I like during the day or in fact I'd call up KCRG and they'd give me the information about who got it about the rain, and we get it down. And I could get a hold of Jack, my son, and 6 or 7 more. For later years, I couldn't help because I couldn't get too old. I couldn't pull it anymore.
In the early years, they just played until it got too wet, and then they just walked off the field.
That's it.
What about the war years, World War II? Did they play ball during the war
No, they
years?
tore the ballpark down in the Old Hill Park in '42 after the '42 season. And we didn't have to play no ballpark until they built the Veterans Memorial Stadium in 1949. Was the first year used.
Were you, at that time, involved in getting the new Veterans Memorial Stadium in place? And
You mean that the one they tore down?
no, this one, the one they built in '49. Was you on the board at that time?
No. I didn't. No.
What year did your wife pass away, Bud?
She passed away September the 2nd
This year?
of last year.
Last year. Okay. How old was she?
77.
Does any of your kids still work at the ballpark?
Oh, Jimmy's over there. My daughter,
Still there.
she works for the ball club.
Well, unless you have any other stories to tell us, Bud, the Cedar Rapids History Center, the Linn County Historical Society would like to thank you very much for sharing your memories
Well,
with
I
us.
want to thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time out to come over here and do all this. Thanks a lot.